converted it into a union territory, which is the other problematic issue, which of course we'll have to argue later. You can change the boundaries of a state, you can bifurcate the boundaries of a large state into smaller states, but never in the history of this country has a state been converted into a union territory. And kindly note one thing. In May 2019, there were parliamentary elections in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. In 2019, May, 37 minutes. Under Article 370, sub-Article 3 of the Constitution, the President, after a recommendation of the J&K Assembly, issued Notification 44, modifying 370, to include an explanation that the phrase state government meant the Sadr-e Riyasat acting in aid and advice of the Council. Kindly note that. That was done by the Constituent Assembly. That's the only time unless they exercise their powers. With reference to 370. On 14th of May 1954, with the concurrence of the government of Jammu and Kashmir, the President issued the Constitution Adaptation to Jammu Kashmir Order 1954, which came into force on May 14, 1954. This order superseded the Constitution application to Jammu Kashmir Order of 1950, which had only those limited provisions. Paragraph 2 of the said order set those provisions of the Constitution, which in addition to Articles 1 and 370. Because that order only had Articles 1 and 370. Would be applicable, and other than one, would be applicable to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Notably, a second proviso was introduced into Article 3 as applied to the state of Jammu and Kashmir in the following terms, provided that no bill providing for increasing or diminishing the area, this is also very important, of the state of Jammu Kashmir or altering the name or boundary of that state shall be introduced in Parliament without the consent of the legislature of that state. So your Lordship knows, Mullahs, Article 3, they can change the boundaries. What happened in this case was, not that they changed the boundaries, Mullahs, they converted it into a union territory, which is the other problematic issue, which of course we'll have to argue later. You can change the boundaries of a state, you can bifurcate the boundaries of a large state into smaller states, but never in the history of this country has a state been converted into a union territory.
You can carve out a union territory out of a state.
You can carve out, but you can't have all of Madhya Pradesh being a union territory tomorrow.
Understanding some assurance that on assembly elections being held, the Jammu and Kashmir will be a state.
No, that's true. But what they have converted it into a union territory as of now. I mean, that's unthinkable. And under the article for Jammu and Kashmir, there was a special provision that had to be consented to. That was also not done. So, Mullahs, you move away from representative democracy, convert it into a union territory under your direct rule. You do away with representative democracy, and 5 years have passed. And every day we hear that we are going to soon have elections. But there has to be a constitutional basis for doing this, Mullahs. And kindly note one thing. In May 2019, there were parliamentary elections in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. In 2019, May, 3 months after this happened on the 6th of August, September, October, November, December, May. You have parliamentary elections. So you can hold parliamentary elections, but you will not hold state elections. But I'm moving away from that to another issue altogether. So, Mullahs, then 1039, 1711-1956, the Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir, in exercise of its constituent powers, approved and adopted the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir. Which is why I started off with the proposition that the concept of a Constituent Assembly is a political exercise. That political authority, that political body can decide on the future of the state. Could have decided on the future of the state. Well, that's a political decision. You want to abrogate 370, abrogate 370. You want to go integrate into India completely, say we don't need a constitution. But that's a political act. That political act cannot be exercised by parliament, by a legislative body. Because that legislative body is controlled by the constitution, and its functions are controlled by the constitution. It can't go beyond that. Which is why I made that statement at the beginning. Then minutes 40. The Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir 1957 came into force on January 26, 1957. By means of this constitution, the people of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, having solemnly resolved in the presence of the accession of this state of India, which took place on 26th day of October 1947, to further define the existing relationship of the state with the Union of India as an integral part thereof. That's declared in the Constitution. So nobody can question that. Nobody need question that. Nobody can say that we are not being regarded as, we were not saying that we are not an integral part of India.
Article 1 applies.
Article 1 applies. And the Constitution defined that relationship. And having defined that relationship, you can't just jettison it. Section 5 of the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir provided that the legislative power of the state extended to all matters except those with respect to which Parliament had power to make laws for the state under the Constitution of India as applicable. Applicable to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Legislative powers in the state were to lie with the Legislative Assembly and the Legislative Council. Significantly, Section 147, which dealt with amendments to the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir, provided that no bill or amendment seeking to change the provisions of the Constitution of India as they applied to Jammu and Kashmir would be introduced or moved in either of the state legislatures. They had no authority once the Constitution had come into force and the orders passed. Then on 21/11/1964, the Constitution application to Jammu Kashmir Third Amendment Order of 1964, that is CO 71, which amended the 54 order, made Article 356 applicable to the state with one modification, that the expression included the Constitution, excluded the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir. Included, yes. Included the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir.